Okay, today we're going to talk about the best green backgrounds that came with the Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate set. While their original purpose was to act as partner commanders for the many legendary creatures in the set, the pairs often led to disappointingly old strategies with little novelty added to the classic D&D characters. However, these enchantments are very inexpensive, with equally inexpensive low mana values that give your commanders additional utility with whatever strategy you may be going for, and should earn a place in the 99 of any of those decks. Of course, let's start with the backgrounds that have less utility in most decks due to their more niche effects. Acolyte of Bahamut reduces the cost of the first dragon spell you cast by 2, so if you're running any deck other than Dragon Tribal, ignore this background. Raised by Giants is the most mana expensive background in the entire background series. It costs 5 and a green and makes your commander a 10/10 giant in addition to whatever it already is. If your plan is a big commander in green, which is a totally unique and original way to play the color, I guess there are worse cards to include. Its high mana cost limits its usability by requiring a high amount of ramp just to get it out. And of course, there's the sheer number of other things you could do with 6 mana in green to make your commander a big threat. With those out of the way, let's get to the more useful ones. Cloakwood Hermit costs 2 and a green and says commander creatures you own have. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature card was put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, create 2 tapped 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. Token decks with green. Whether you're going wide or swinging with them or running an aristocrat strategy, this background won't be a bad choice. This will also trigger an additional creature ETB or 2, so if you're benefiting in any way from creatures entering the battlefield, this will get you some additional value when your creatures inevitably visit the graveyard. If you have the space, Cloakwood Hermit isn't a bad include if creatures are your strategy. Hardy Outlander costs 1 and a green and says commander creatures you own have. Whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, another target creature you control gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is this creature's power. Are you running an aggressive commander with green? This will double another attacking creature's power until end of turn. You do have to attack the player with the highest life total, but with this background, you might be able to keep your commander damage target at the highest life total, while sending your big creatures at the other opponents to keep the bonus alive, depending on how much damage you're doing anyway. Whether you're swinging and making tokens with Geared Conclave Exile, or making another human attacker massive with Sigarda Champion of Light, Hardy Outlander should find a slot in any budget aggro strategy with green. Master Chef costs 2 and a green and says commander creatures you own have. This creature enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it, and other creatures you control enter the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on them. If you can't afford a metallic mimic, use this instead. Or if you're tight on card slots, you can replace other cards like Renata to get counters on your creatures instead. If your commander needs counters for whatever reason, having this out will give you a counter to start, which can help it get out of hand sooner than usual. Jashiro the Shattered Blade and Atraxa will both be well on their way to getting out of hand if you cast them with Master Chef on the field. Halana and Alana partners would put 3 counters on a creature instead of 2 at the start, which isn't bad. And even outside those specific strategies, just having bigger creatures in general isn't exactly a bad thing. It's a very simple effect that fits with green's traditional make everything massive and run your opponents over strategy, so unless you have something less budget or room for another counter effect like this, there's no real reason not to include Master of the Chef in your green deck. And we're finally finished. That's all of the backgrounds in Baldur's Gate that you should be running in your commander decks. Let me know what you thought about these backgrounds and this entire series in the comments below. Dominaria Remastered and Phyrexia All Will Be One are coming, and leaks have been happening, so I want to start talking about the cards I'm really interested in for existing decks and commanders that might be fun to build around later. I'll be setting up a table in the office for spell table games, so I might be able to start adding gameplay for some of these decks we're messing with, so stay tuned for that. So, as always, like the video if you liked the video, dislike it if you disliked it, and until next time, I'm Space Coconut, and you're welcome.